My wife was in the shower when her phone lit up. "I miss your smile." I replied from her number. "Come over. He's not home." When the doorbell rang 19 minutes later, I opened the door myself. Her face went white. His smile died instantly. That's when the real game began. "My name is Preston Walsh. I'm 44 years old, and I flip houses for a living in the Chicago suburbs. Started with a rundown ranch in Naperville 15 years ago, turned it around for 30 grand profit, and never looked back. The work taught me to see through surfaces, to spot rot behind fresh paint, to understand that foundations can look solid while crumbling underneath. Should have applied those skills to my marriage sooner." It was a Wednesday evening in late September when the foundation split wide open. Courtney was in the shower, humming something I didn't recognize. Steam curled under the bathroom door while I folded laundry on our bed. Just another ordinary night in our 8-year marriage. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Once, then again. I glanced at it without thinking. The notification preview lit up the screen. "Austin Reynolds, I miss your smile." For words that changed everything. Austin Reynolds, her coworker from the corporate training department. The 33-year-old she'd mentioned casually a few times. Going through a rough divorce, she'd said. Needed someone to talk to during lunch breaks. Nothing to worry about. The water was still running. Her humming continued, completely oblivious. I picked up her phone. No passcode. Never had one in 8 years. I opened the message thread. 4 months of messages. Nothing explicit at first, but the progression was clear. Professional questions becoming personal. Compliments about her presentations, shifting into comments about her smile, her laugh, her eyes. Late-night texts. Good morning messages. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. The most recent exchange from 2 days ago. Thinking about you constantly. This is getting harder to hide. Her reply. I know. Me too. Thursday night. Tomorrow night. Tomorrow was Thursday. My hand stayed steady as I typed a response from her phone. Change of plans. Come over tonight. He's not home. I hit send. Then I set the phone back exactly where it had been, face up on the nightstand. I continued folding laundry. Matching socks. Smoothing shirts. My pulse was calm. My mind was already calculating next steps. Courtney emerged from the bathroom 8 minutes later, wrapped in her robe, hair dripping. She picked up her phone casually, scrolled briefly, then froze completely. Her face went from flushed to pale in seconds. Everything okay? I asked, not looking up from the towel I was folding. Yeah, Courtney said, her voice too high. Just a work thing. Anything important? I pressed. No, just client follow-up stuff. She forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I nodded slowly. Okay. She disappeared into the bedroom, clutching her phone like a lifeline. 19 minutes later, the doorbell rang. I was in the kitchen making coffee. Courtney was still in the bedroom, now dressed in jeans and a sweater, staring at her phone with visible panic on her face. You expecting someone? I called out, already walking toward the front door. No answer. I opened the door. Austin Reynolds stood on my porch holding a wine bottle and wearing a confident smile that died the instant he saw my face. Austin stood there frozen, the wine bottle hanging awkwardly in his hand. He was younger than me by 11 years, wearing dark jeans and a button-down with the sleeves rolled up. The kind of guy who probably thought he looked casually confident. Right now he just looked caught. Wrong house. I asked, my voice perfectly level. Austin's mouth opened, closed, opened again. His eyes darted past my shoulder, searching desperately for Courtney. I thought. You thought what? I stepped aside and gestured into the house. Come on in. Let's talk about it. He didn't move. Smart enough to recognize a trap when he saw one. Behind me, I heard Courtney's footsteps. Light. Hesitant. She appeared at the edge of the hallway, still in her robe from earlier, her wet hair leaving dark spots on the fabric. Austin saw her, and understanding flooded his face. Then something close to panic. Courtney, he said, his voice thin. Did you? She didn't answer. Just stood there paralyzed, one hand gripping the hallway wall. I turned to face her. Honey, your friend Austin is here. The one who misses your smile so much. Her face flushed deep red, then went pale. Preston, I can explain. I'm sure you can. I interrupted calmly. But first, let's invite Austin inside. He brought wine. Seems rude to leave him standing on the porch. Austin backed up a step. Look, man, I didn't know she was. I thought you weren't home. This is a misunderstanding. And misunderstanding. I repeated slowly. Is that what we're calling it? Because I read your texts. All of them. For months' worth. That's a pretty long misunderstanding. The color drained from his face. Courtney made a small sound, something between a gasp and a whimper. You went through my phone, she asked, her voice breaking. Your unlocked phone that was sitting on our bed, I clarified. The one you never bothered to protect because you trusted me. Funny how that works. Austin held up his hands like I was pointing a weapon at him. I'm leaving. This was a mistake. I'm sorry. You're damn right it was a mistake, I said quietly. But not the kind you think. He turned and practically ran to his car, the wine bottle slipping from his grip and shattering on the driveway. Glass and red wine spread across the concrete like blood. His sedan peeled out of our cul-de-sac so fast his tires squealed. I closed the door and turned to face my wife. Courtney was crying now, tears streaming down her face, her hands shaking. Preston, please, let me explain. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. I cut her off. 4 months of texts. Plans to meet tomorrow night. And tonight he showed up thinking I wasn't home because that's what you told him. Or rather, what I told him from your phone. She stared at me, comprehension dawning. You set this up. I verified what I already suspected. I corrected. You provided all the evidence. I just gave a stage. We didn't sleep together, she said desperately. I swear, nothing physical happened. Yet, I said, what was Thursday night supposed to be, Courtney? Another client meeting? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I walked past her into the kitchen, poured myself the coffee I'd made earlier, and drank it slowly. My hands were completely steady. My heart rate was normal. I felt nothing. Or maybe I felt everything, and my brain had just shut it down to function. Courtney followed me, standing in the doorway like a ghost. What happens now? She whispered. I set down the coffee mug and looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman I'd married 8 years ago. The woman who'd just invited another man to our home while thinking I was gone. Now you're going to pack a bag, I said calmly. You're going to stay somewhere else tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out what comes next. But tonight, I need you gone. Preston, please. Can't we just talk about this? No, I said firmly. Not tonight. Tonight I need space. Tomorrow we'll talk. But right now, I need you out of this house. She stared at me, waiting for me to yell, to break, to beg. I did none of those things. After 20 minutes of crying and packing, she left with a suitcase and drove to her sister's place. The house felt different without her. Quieter, like something that had been vibrating at the wrong frequency had finally stopped. I sat at the kitchen table until 3 in the morning, not thinking, not planning, just breathing. Courtney stayed at her sister's place in Schaumburg. She called me the next morning, her voice hoarse from crying. I didn't answer. Let go to voicemail. She left a 3-minute message begging to talk, to explain, to fix things. I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. I had work to do. I started with her phone, which she'd left behind in her rush to pack. Backed up everything to my laptop. Screenshots of every conversation between her and Austin. Every photo in her cloud storage, including one she deleted but hadn't purged. There were pictures I'd never seen before. Them at a wine bar in Evanston. His hand on her lower back. Her laughing at something he said. The timestamp showed it was 3 weeks ago on a Tuesday, when she'd told me she had a late training session. I found hotel bookings in her email. The Marriott in Rosemont. One night, 3 weeks ago. Checked in at 8 p.m., checked out at midnight. She'd used our joint credit card. She'd charged our marital infidelity to our shared account and expected me not to notice. I organized everything into folders, labeled by date, created a timeline document. Then I pulled out my property files, LLCs, trust documents, mortgage statements. Most people don't understand real estate structuring. When you flip houses, you learn to protect assets. I had 3 rental properties. 2 were under an LLC I'd formed 6 years ago. The third was in a trust. Courtney had signed paperwork when we bought them, but the actual ownership had been restructured over time through perfectly legal transfers. She wasn't on the titles anymore. Hadn't been for years. Our primary residence was different. Joint ownership. But I'd been making the mortgage payments from my business account, not our joint checking. I had documentation proving it. I called Margaret Hayes, my real estate attorney, at 9 a.m. Preston, she answered. What's going on? I need a divorce attorney. Someone aggressive. What happened? Margaret's tone shifted immediately to professional concern. My wife's been having an affair for 4 months. I have complete documentation. Text messages, photos, hotel receipts, charged to our joint card. I need to know my options. How much documentation? Margaret asked. Enough to make a prosecutor jealous, I said. Everything digital. Everything time-stamped. Everything provable. Illinois is no fault, Margaret reminded me. But infidelity still matters in asset division, especially when marital funds were used. Come to my office at 2. Bring everything. I spent 3 hours with Margaret that afternoon. She reviewed every screenshot, every receipt, every timeline entry. When she finished, she sat back and smiled. Preston, your wife just made this very easy for you, Margaret said. She used marital funds for her affair. That's financial misconduct. Combined with your documentation of separate property ownership and mortgage payments from your business account, you're in an exceptionally strong position. What do you recommend? I asked. Separation agreement first, Margaret explained. You offer her temporary housing in one of your rental properties. Make it seem generous. She'll accept because she'll feel guilty and won't have better options. Once she signs, you control everything. Rent, utilities, terms. If she violates any clause, you have grounds for immediate action. She won't see it coming, I said. They never do, Margaret replied. Men like Austin think they're winning until they realize they walked into a trap from the beginning. I left her office with a strategy that felt more like a chess endgame than a divorce. That evening, Courtney called again. This time I answered. Can we please talk? She begged immediately. Tomorrow, I said calmly. My attorney's office. 10 a.m. Your attorney? Her voice rose in panic. Preston, I don't want this to become ugly. It already is ugly, I interrupted. Be there at 10. We'll discuss terms. I hung up before she could respond. The call from the Wheaton Townhouse Community Management came 2 days before the meeting with Courtney. I'd already drafted the separation agreement, already prepared the trap, already lined up every piece. Mr. Walsh, this is Sandra from Riverside Community Management, the woman said. We've received multiple noise complaints about your property at 2847 Maple Grove. I sat up straighter. What kind of complaints? Loud arguments. Raised voices. One neighbor reported what sounded like objects being thrown. This was 11 p.m. on a weeknight. We have community quiet hours after 10. When did this happen? I asked, already pulling up my calendar. 3 nights ago. Wednesday evening, Sandra said. And there's been an unauthorized vehicle in the visitor parking consistently. A silver Honda Accord. It's been there overnight multiple times, which violates our guest parking policy. Austin's car. He'd been there. At the property I owned, before Courtney had even moved in. I'll handle it, I said tightly. Send me the formal complaint documentation. The email arrived within an hour. Detailed logs. Neighbor statements. Photos of Austin's car in the visitor lot at 11:47 p.m., time-stamped and geotagged. I forwarded everything to Margaret with a single line. Leverage. She called me back immediately. Preston, this is perfect. You haven't even offered her the townhouse yet, but we can use this in negotiations. It shows a pattern of poor judgment and relationship instability. Can we include it in the separation agreement? I asked. Better, Margaret said. We had a strict no cohabitation clause. Any violation triggers immediate penalties. She'll sign it thinking it's standard, not realizing she's already proven she can't follow rules. Courtney showed up at Margaret's office at 9:52 a.m., 8 minutes early. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back messily, wearing yoga pants and an old sweatshirt. The polished corporate trainer was gone. This was someone who'd been crying for 3 days straight. Thank you for coming. Margaret began professionally once we were all seated in her conference room. We're here to discuss a separation agreement that works for both parties. Courtney's eyes were fixed on me. Preston, I don't want a divorce. I want to work on this. That's admirable. Margaret interrupted smoothly. But right now, we need to establish boundaries while you both figure out next steps. Preston has prepared a proposal. I slid the folder across the table. Courtney opened it with shaking hands. What is this? She asked, scanning the first page. A separation agreement, I said evenly. You'll move into one of my rental properties in Wheaton. 2-bedroom townhouse, fully furnished. You'll pay fair market rent, $1,500 monthly. I continue paying the mortgage on this house. We split joint expenses 50-50 until we decide on permanent arrangements. She flipped through the pages, her brow furrowing. You want me to pay you rent? It's market rate, Margaret interjected. Actually slightly below comparable properties in that area. But Preston owns it, Courtney said, looking at me with disbelief. You're making me pay rent to live in your property. I'm offering you affordable housing during a difficult transition, I corrected. If you'd prefer to find your own apartment and pay $1,800 or $2,000 a month, that's your choice. This option keeps things simple. Her hands were trembling as she continued reading, and she stopped on a specific page. What's this clause about cohabitation? Standard language, Margaret said. No overnight guests or shared residence with another party. Violation results in triple rent and potential eviction. Courtney looked up sharply. You're trying to control who I can see? I'm protecting my property, I said coldly, and ensuring you don't bring Austin into a house I own. Seems reasonable given the circumstances. Her face went pale. How did you? Community management called, I said. Noise complaints. His car in visitor parking overnight. At the property you don't even live in yet. Want to explain that? She looked like she might be sick. Sign the agreement, Courtney, I said quietly. Or we can do this the hard way. Courtney signed the separation agreement after 2 hours of crying and negotiating. Margaret had been relentless, shutting down every objection with cold legal logic. By the time Courtney walked out of that conference room, she'd agreed to everything. The rent, the no cohabitation clause, the timeline, all of it. She moved into the Wheaton townhouse on a Saturday. I met her there with keys and a folder of documents. She arrived in her sister's SUV, boxes piled in the back, looking exhausted and defeated. It's nice, Courtney said quietly, walking through the empty rooms. Her voice echoed off the hardwood floors. Furniture arrives Monday, I told her. Basic stuff. Couch, bed, kitchen table. Anything else you need, you handle yourself. She set down a box and turned to face me. Preston, can we please talk? Really talk? About trying to fix this. Fix what? I asked, leaning against the kitchen counter. 8 years of marriage you threw away for a 33-year-old. He was a mistake, she said desperately. You're my husband. I want us back. Then you should have thought about that before you invited him here, I said coldly. Before you charge hotel rooms to our credit card. Before you lied to my face for 4 months. I'll do anything, she pleaded. Therapy. Whatever you want. Just don't give up on us. I studied her for a moment. She looked genuine. Broken. But broken doesn't mean trustworthy. And genuine regret doesn't erase 4 months of calculated deception. Here's what's going to happen, I said calmly. You live here. You pay rent on time. You follow the lease terms. And most importantly, you have zero contact with Austin. None. If I find out you've texted him, called him, or seen him, this lease terminates immediately and we proceed straight to divorce. I already blocked his number, she said quickly. I told HR about everything. They're moving him to a different apartment. Good, I said. That's a start. She looked around the empty townhouse again, her shoulders sagging. This feels like a prison sentence. It's not, I said. It's a consequence. There's a difference. I handed her the keys and the document folder. First rent payment is due on the 1st. Utilities are in your name as of today. Gate code and community rules are in the paperwork. Any maintenance issues, call the property management number. Property management? She asked, confused. You always manage your own rentals. Not this one. I lied smoothly. Too much conflict of interest. I hired a company to handle it. Keeps things professional. The property management company was just me and a virtual assistant, but Courtney didn't need to know that. 2 weeks later, I got a call from her. Her voice was shaky, uncertain. Preston, I need to tell you something, Courtney said. I took a pregnancy test this morning. The world tilted sideways. And I managed to ask, my voice tight. It's positive, she whispered. I'm pregnant. My mind immediately did the math. We hadn't slept together in over a month. Not since 2 weeks before I found the text. It's not mine, I said, the words like gravel in my throat. I know, she said, and started crying. Preston, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. How far along? I interrupted. I don't know yet. Maybe 5 or 6 weeks. I have a doctor's appointment next week to confirm. 5 or 6 weeks. That minute happened right around the time I found those texts. Maybe even the night I caught Austin at her door. Does he know? I asked. No. I just found out. I don't know what to do. I'm terrified. You tell him, I said flatly. Today. Right now. This is his problem as much as yours. What about us? She asked desperately. What does this mean for us? It means you're having another man's baby, I said, feeling nothing but cold clarity. There is no us anymore, Courtney. Call Austin. Deal with this. And make sure your next rent payment is on time. I hung up before she could respond. I sat in my truck in the driveway of a property I was renovating in Lyle, staring at nothing. My wife was pregnant, with her lover's child. The marriage wasn't just over. It was incinerated. I called Margaret. We need to accelerate everything, I said when she answered. Courtney's pregnant. It's not mine. Margaret was quiet for a moment. That changes things significantly. DNA test. Once the baby's born, yes. But right now, I need divorce papers filed. Immediately. Preston, this is actually advantageous for you, Margaret said carefully. Pregnancy from an affair is clear evidence of adultery. Illinois may be no fault, but this impacts everything from spousal support to asset division. No judge is going to look kindly on this. File the papers, I said. And Margaret, I want full enforcement of the lease terms. Every clause. Every violation. I'm done being generous. Understood, she replied. I'll have papers ready by end of day tomorrow. I hung up and sat there in the silence, waiting to feel something. Anger. Sadness. Anything. But all I felt was the cold satisfaction of knowing I'd documented everything before it got worse. The threatening email started 3 days after Courtney told Austin about the pregnancy. The first one came at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Anonymous Gmail account. Subject line, back off. You need to leave Courtney alone. She's going through enough without you making it worse. Drop the lease penalties and let her live in peace or you'll regret it. I forwarded it to Margaret without responding. The second email came the next morning. More aggressive. I know where you work. I know your properties. Keep pushing her and you'll see what happens. This is your only warning. I forwarded that one too, then called Margaret. These are clearly from Austin, Margaret said after reading them. The timing, the content, the tone. Do not respond. Do not engage. Save everything and let me handle it. What can we do? I asked. If he continues, we file for a restraining order. These constitute threats and harassment. But right now, we document and wait. The third email arrived that evening. This one was different, more desperate than threatening. Courtney told me what you're doing. Trapping her in that lease. Making her pay you while she's pregnant. You're destroying her. I won't let you keep hurting her. I saved it and called the police non-emergency line. Filed a report. Got a case number. Added it to my growing file of documentation. Then I did something Austin wouldn't expect. I hired a private investigator. His name was Frank Delgado, a former Chicago PD detective who now ran a small firm handling insurance fraud and domestic cases. I'd used him once before to verify a property seller's claims about renovation work. I need background on someone, I told Frank over coffee at a diner in Naperville. Austin Reynolds, 33 years old, works in corporate training. Recently started sending me threatening emails. What are you looking for? Frank asked, taking notes. Everything. Employment history, financial status, legal issues, past relationships, anything that tells me who this guy really is. How deep do you want me to go? Frank asked. Deep enough to know if he's just blowing smoke or if I need to worry, I said, and deep enough to find leverage if I need it. Frank had preliminary results within a week. Austin Reynolds had worked at 3 different companies in the past 6 years. Each stint lasted less than 2 years. One termination showed up in his employment record from 2022, though details were sealed in a settlement agreement. That sealed settlement is interesting, Frank said when he called with the update. Usually means something HR wanted buried. Could be harassment, could be misconduct, could be anything. I can dig deeper if you want, but it'll take time and money. Do it, I said. Whatever it costs. 2 weeks later, Frank called me back. Preston, you're going to want to hear this in person, he said, his tone serious. We met at the same diner. Frank slid a folder across the table. Austin Reynolds was fired from his position at Midwest Solutions in 2022, Frank explained. Official reason was violation of company policy. Unofficial reason, which I got from someone who still works there, was a harassment complaint. A junior analyst, 24 years old, claimed Austin made repeated, unwanted advances, sent inappropriate messages, showed up at her apartment uninvited. I felt my jaw tighten. What happened? Company investigated, found enough evidence to terminate him. He threatened to sue for wrongful termination. They settled for an undisclosed amount with an NDA. She left the company 6 months later. Do you have her name? I asked. I do, Frank said. But approaching her could violate the NDA and cause problems. What I can tell you is there's a pattern here. Young women, emotional vulnerability, boundary violations. Courtney's 36, I pointed out. Not exactly a young analyst. But she was vulnerable, Frank said, feeling neglected in her marriage. Exactly the type he targets. I sat back, processing this information. Austin wasn't just some lovesick fool. He was predatory, calculated. And now he was threatening me while my wife carried his child. Give me everything you can on that harassment case, I said. Names, dates, documentation. If he escalates these threats, I want ammunition. Already on it, Frank replied. I left the diner with the folder, my mind already planning 3 moves ahead. Austin thought he was protecting Courtney. He had no idea he was painting a target on himself. I didn't have to wait long to use the information Frank had uncovered. 3 days after learning about Austin's harassment history, I got a call from Courtney. Her voice was shaking. Preston, something happened at work, she said. HR called me in for a meeting this morning. They're investigating Austin. For what? I asked, though I had a good idea. Someone filed a complaint, Courtney said. They wouldn't tell me who, but they're looking into his conduct with multiple women in the department. They asked me questions about our relationship, about whether I ever felt pressured or uncomfortable. I said nothing, letting her talk. Did you do this? She asked quietly. Did you report him? I didn't report anything to your HR department, I said truthfully. What I didn't mention was that Frank had a contact at Midwest Solutions who'd been willing to talk to someone at Courtney's company off the record. Not me, but someone who understood patterns of predatory behavior needed to be exposed. They're putting him on administrative leave, Courtney continued, pending the investigation. Preston, he's going to think I told them. He's going to blame me for this. That's not your problem, I said. If he has nothing to hide, he'll be fine. If he does, then you dodged a bigger bullet than you realized. She was quiet for a moment. What if he comes here? To the townhouse. He's angry, and he knows where I live. If he shows up, you call the police immediately, I said firmly. And you call me. Do not let him in. Do not engage with him. Understood. Okay, she whispered. I'm serious, Courtney. If he threatens you or tries to force his way in, you dial 911 first, then me. After I hung up, I called Frank. The HR investigation started. I told him. How long before they find the same pattern you found? If their investigator is any good? A week, maybe 2, Frank said. Once they start digging, they'll find a Midwest Solutions termination. And if anyone else in Courtney's department has complaints, it'll snowball fast. Good, I said. Keep monitoring. I want to know if Austin does anything stupid. 2 weeks later, Frank called with an update. Austin Reynolds was terminated this morning, Frank said. Effective immediately. The investigation found multiple violations of company harassment policy. 2 other women came forward with complaints about inappropriate communications and boundary violations. Combined with his history at Midwest Solutions, they had more than enough to fire him. What about Courtney? I asked. She received an official warning for failing to report the relationship initially, but they're not terminating her. She's being reassigned to a different training team, different location. She'll survive professionally. Austin, however, was done. Fired from 2 companies in 3 years for the same behavior. His career in corporate training was effectively over, and I felt absolutely nothing about it. That evening, I got a text from an unknown number. You destroyed my career. You turned everyone against me. This isn't over. I screenshot it, saved it, and forwarded it to Margaret. That's enough for a restraining order, Margaret said when I called. He's made direct threats, violated harassment policies, and now he's escalating. We file tomorrow. The restraining order was granted within a week. Austin Reynolds was legally required to stay at least 500 feet from me, Courtney, and any property I owned. Violation would result in immediate arrest. I had the order served at his apartment by a sheriff's deputy. Wanted to make sure the message was crystal clear. Frank called me the day after service. Austin's in financial trouble, Frank said. He's not going to find another corporate job, with 2 terminations for harassment on his record. His unemployment won't cover his rent. He's already behind on his car payment, according to my sources. How behind? I asked. 2 months. Car's likely to get repossessed within the next few weeks. Keep watching, I said. I want to know if he declares bankruptcy. Because if Austin went bankrupt, Courtney would be facing single motherhood with a baby whose father had no income, no prospects, and a restraining order keeping him away from the only property where she could afford to live. And that reality would hit her harder than anything I could say. The call came at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, in late November. I was at a property in Downers Grove, finishing up late paperwork after the contractors had left. My phone buzzed with Courtney's number. "Preston," she said, her voice strange and hollow. "I'm at the hospital. Something's wrong." I was in my truck and driving within 30 seconds. "What happened?" "I started bleeding," she said, crying now. "A lot of bleeding. The pain was so bad I called an ambulance. They're running tests, but the doctor said, she said it doesn't look good." "I'm 15 minutes away," I said, already calculating the fastest route to Central DuPage Hospital. "Which emergency room?" She told me. I made it in 12 minutes. I found Courtney in an ER bay behind a curtain, looking small and pale in a hospital gown, and 4 at her arm. Her sister Diana was there, holding her hand. Diana looked up when I walked in. Her expression was complicated. Angry at me for what I'd done to her sister. Grateful I'd come. Exhausted from being caught in the middle. "They're doing an ultrasound," Diana said quietly. "The doctor thinks she's miscarrying." Courtney looked at me with red, swollen eyes. "I'm losing the baby." I didn't know what to say. This was Austin's child, not mine. The physical evidence of her betrayal. But it was also a loss she was experiencing, a grief that was real regardless of circumstances. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. The doctor came in 20 minutes later with the ultrasound results. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a gentle manner that somehow made the news easier to hear. "I'm very sorry," the doctor said, "but the pregnancy is no longer viable. You're experiencing a spontaneous miscarriage, likely around 8 weeks gestation. We'll need to monitor you for a few hours to ensure there are no complications, but physically, you should recover fully." Courtney turned her face away, sobbing silently. Diana squeezed her hand. The doctor excused herself to give us privacy. I stood there awkwardly, not knowing my role in this moment. Not husband anymore. Not quite enemy. Something undefined and uncomfortable. Did I do this? Courtney asked suddenly, looking at me with anguished eyes. All the stress, the separation, the fighting. Did I cause this? No, I said firmly. Miscarriages happen. The doctor said it's common, especially in first trimester. This isn't your fault. But the stress didn't cause this. I interrupted. Your body doesn't work that way. This was going to happen regardless of what was going on between us. Diana gave me a surprised look, like she hadn't expected me to be kind. But I wasn't being kind for Courtney's sake. I was being factual, because I'd researched miscarriage statistics extensively the moment I learned she was pregnant. 8 to 20% of known pregnancies end in miscarriage. Most happen in the first trimester, due to chromosomal abnormalities. Stress doesn't cause them. And more importantly, I wasn't going to let Courtney blame herself for this and later use that guilt to blame me. They kept her at the hospital until 6 a.m. I stayed in the waiting room, drinking terrible coffee, scrolling through property listings on my phone, existing in a strange limbo. Diana came out around 5:30. She's asking for you, Diana said quietly. I followed her back to the room. Courtney was dressed now, sitting on the edge of the bed, looking exhausted and empty. Thank you for staying, Courtney said. You didn't have to. You called me. I said simply. I know I have no right to ask this, she continued, her voice breaking. But can you take me home? Diana has to get back to her kids, and I don't want to be alone in that townhouse right now. Diana looked at me, her expression pleading on her sister's behalf. I'll take you, I said. We drove to Wheaton in silence. I helped her inside, made sure she had water and pain medication, put her phone charger within reach. Do you need anything else? I asked. Will you stay? She asked quietly. Just for a few hours? I don't want to be alone right now. I should have said no. Should have left. Should have maintained the distance I'd carefully constructed. But she just lost a pregnancy. And despite everything, despite the betrayal and the lies and the destruction of our marriage, she was still a human being in pain. I'll stay until you fall asleep, I said. She nodded gratefully and curled up on the couch under a blanket. I sat in the chair across from her, my laptop open, working on property assessments while she drifted off. When her breathing evened out into sleep, I stayed another hour just to make sure she was stable. Then I left quietly, locking the door behind me. I drove home as the sun came up, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just exhaustion. 3 weeks after the miscarriage, my brother Daniel called me for the first time in 6 months. "Preston, I heard about you and Courtney," Daniel said, his voice careful. "Can we talk?" "Who told you?" I asked, irritated. "Courtney did. She came to St. Benedict's last Sunday, sat through Mass, then asked to speak with me afterward. She was pretty broken up." I felt my jaw tighten. "What did she tell you?" "That you were getting divorced. That she'd made terrible mistakes, and you were making her pay for them. That you trapped her in a lease designed to fail her. That she'd just lost a pregnancy and felt completely alone." "Interesting version of events," I said coldly. "Did she mention the 4-month affair? The hotel rooms, charged to our credit card? The fact that the pregnancy wasn't mine?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. "She mentioned the affair. Not all the other details." "Of course not," I said bitterly. "She came to you for sympathy." "I'm not calling to take her side," Daniel said. "I'm calling because you're my brother, and I'm concerned. This anger, this coldness, it's not healthy." "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm just done being manipulated." "Preston, can we meet? Please. Just coffee. Let me hear your side." I didn't want to. Didn't want to lecture about Christian forgiveness and turning the other cheek. But Daniel had a quiet persistence that was hard to refuse. "Fine," I said. "Saturday morning. But I'm not interested in a sermon." "No sermon," Daniel promised. "Just brothers talking." We met at a diner in Aurora on Saturday. Daniel was in civilian clothes, not his clerical collar. He hugged me when I arrived, which surprised me. "Thanks for coming," Daniel said. Over coffee and breakfast, I told him everything. The discovery, the trap, the separation agreement, the lease violations, the pregnancy, the miscarriage, all of it. Daniel listened without interrupting. When I finished, he sat back and exhaled slowly. "That's a heavy burden to carry," Daniel said quietly. "I won't tell you what Courtney did wasn't wrong. It was the lying, the betrayal. It's all real, and it hurt you deeply. But," I asked, hearing the unspoken word. "But Preston, what's your endgame?" Daniel asked. "You've won. The divorce is proceeding. She's paying rent on a property you control. You've documented everything. So what comes after you've proven you're right and she's wrong?" "Then I move on with my life," I said simply. "To what?" Daniel pressed. "More properties, more work, more nights convincing yourself you're fine." "I'm fine," I said defensively. "Are you?" Daniel asked gently. "Because you look like someone who's replaced feeling with calculation." "That's not healing, Preston. That's just survival mode." "What would you have me do?" I asked, frustrated. "Forgive her. Let her off the hook." "I'm asking you to consider whether the path you're on is actually helping you or just keeping you numb," Daniel said. "Dad used to say that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Remember?" I did remember. Our father had said it often. "The next time Courtney comes to church," Daniel continued carefully, "she's going to hear a sermon about consequences and accountability, but also about mercy and second chances. Because both things can be true at once." "Are you asking me to come?" I asked. "I'm inviting you," Daniel said. "Not to reconcile with Courtney. Not to forgive her if you're not ready. Just to hear something that might help you find peace." I showed up at St. Benedict's the following Sunday, sitting in the back, watching Courtney 2 rows from the front. She didn't see me come in. Daniel's sermon was about the woman caught in adultery, about how Jesus didn't condemn her, but also didn't excuse her actions, about how consequences and compassion can coexist. "Sometimes," Daniel said from the pulpit, looking directly at Courtney, though he could have been talking to anyone, "we destroy the most precious things in our lives through our own choices. And we have to live with that. But destruction doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be the beginning of something different. Something humbler. Maybe something wiser." After Mass, I waited outside. Courtney emerged looking tired, but somehow lighter. She saw me and froze. Preston, she said quietly. I heard your version of events, I said. Thought you should know I heard it. Her face flushed. I didn't lie to Father Daniel. You didn't tell him the whole truth either, I interrupted. But that's between you and your conscience. What are you doing here? She asked. My brother invited me, I said simply, and I realized something listening to him talk. I don't want to carry this anger anymore. Not for your sake. For mine. Does that mean? She started hopefully. It means I'm done fighting, I said, cutting her off. The divorce proceeds. The lease stays as written. But I'm not interested in destroying you anymore. I'm just interested in moving forward. She nodded slowly, tears forming. That's fair. There's something else, I said. Frank found out Austin filed for bankruptcy last week. Chapter 7. He's broke, unemployed, and legally prohibited from contacting either of us. You're going to be on your own financially. Can you handle that? I'll figure it out, she said quietly. I have to. Good, I said. Because I'm not your safety net anymore. I walked away without looking back. The divorce was finalized on a cold Tuesday in February. Courtney signed everything without contest. She got minimal assets, no spousal support, and kept her job through sheer determination. I kept the house, the rental properties, most of the retirement accounts. Austin's bankruptcy went through. His career was destroyed, his finances ruined, his reputation permanently damaged. I felt nothing about it. Frank's final report showed Austin had moved back to his hometown in Wisconsin, living with his parents, working retail. The restraining order remained in effect. Courtney paid her rent on time for 8 months. Then she gave me notice. She was moving to Indianapolis to be closer to her sister Diana, taking a position at a smaller training company that paid less but offered remote work and flexibility. I can't stay here anymore, she told me when she dropped off her keys. Too many memories. Too many reminders of everything I destroyed. Good luck, I said, meant it. I heard through mutual acquaintances over the following year that she was rebuilding, dating someone age-appropriate, a divorced father of 2 who understood what it meant to start over, seeing a therapist weekly, learning to live with her choices. As for me, I threw myself into work for several months, flipped 3 more houses, bought a small commercial building in Naperville that needed major renovation, kept moving. Daniel and I had dinner monthly now. He never pushed religion on me, just offered the kind of steady presence older brothers provide when younger ones are finding their way. 10 months after the divorce, I met someone at a charity auction Daniel had convinced me to attend. Her name was Rachel. She was 38, a pediatric nurse, never married. She had no idea about my past until our 3rd date when I told her about Courtney, about the betrayal, about everything. That must have been incredibly painful, Rachel said simply. It was, I admitted, but I learned a lot about who I am when everything falls apart. And who are you? She asked. Someone who's learning the difference between justice and revenge, I said. Someone who's figuring out how to trust again. That's a good answer, Rachel said, smiling. We took it slow. Coffee dates, dinners, long conversations about dreams and disappointments, and what we wanted from life. No rushing, no pressure, just 2 people learning each other honestly. 18 months after the divorce, I sold the Wheaton townhouse where Courtney had lived. Got an excellent price. Used the profit to invest in a mixed-use development downtown with 2 other partners. Daniel and I were having dinner at his favorite restaurant when he asked me the question, "Are you happy, Preston?" Daniel asked. I thought about it. About Rachel and the life we were carefully building. About the business ventures that challenged me. About the peace I'd found after letting go of anger. Yeah, I said. I think I actually am. Good, Daniel said, raising his glass. That's what Dad would have wanted. Not revenge. Not vindication. Just you finding your way back to yourself. To finding the way back, I said, touching my glass to his. I never spoke to Courtney again after she moved to Indianapolis. Didn't need to. She paid off her settlement over 2 years, every payment on time. When the final payment cleared, I deleted her contact information. I was 46 years old, in a healthy relationship with someone who valued honesty, running a successful real estate business, and learning how to trust my instincts again. It wasn't a life I'd planned when I stood at an altar and promised forever, but it was real, built on hard lessons and difficult choices. And when I looked in a mirror now, I recognized the man looking back. That was worth more than any victory in court.